Good morning. Well, it's morning for me. I don't know what it'll be when you see this, but today we're going to talk about a few things, which basically has to do with prepping. And there's a history of preppers being looked upon as people that wear the tinfoil hats, that are a little crazy, extreme people. But the last few years, that has changed. And I want to welcome Kylie to the chat room and whoever else is here besides me. Welcome. I know it's early, right? I encourage everyone here and later to like, subscribe, comment, and share the video. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with an article that came out on November 6th of 22 called "The Preppers Were Right All Along." In the first 7 months of 2020, as the pandemic brought America to its knees, sales at survivalist supplier Augason Farms surged. So since then, since 3 years ago, Augason Farms and other emergency food businesses have been getting like triple, 10 times the business that they were getting before. It says tripling its annual revenue. The company couldn't make its Mylar packages of long storage comfort foods, powdered eggs and nut butters, freeze-dried stroganoffs, casseroles, and lasagnas fast enough. To meet the demand, founder Mark Augason simplified his production, knocking his 60 products down to the core best sellers and cutting off dozens of distributors so he could funnel his sales largely through Walmart Inc. and Amazon, which you can find a lot of his stuff on Amazon. It was like my Super Bowl. It was finally here, Augason told me, and it hasn't yet ended. Auguson's Super Bowl moment has lasted 3 years and may persist for many more. Just when Augason Farms and other major survival food brands from Mountain House to ReadyWise and My Patriot Supply we're beginning to see a softening in demand this summer as Americans returned to pre-pandemic behavior. The worsening impacts of Russia's invasion of Ukraine hit, along with rising fuel costs and inflation and withering drought and heat waves in the western U.S. and Europe. Then came Hurricane Ian, which caused nearly $2 billion in agricultural damage in Florida alone. We can't forget the blizzard a couple years ago either. Preppers, as the community of bunker builders and food hoarders is known. Food hoarders. I don't know. I think hoarding and prepping is different. Prepping is more organized. Hoarders, I don't know. It just seems like there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's like an addiction or something. Prepping is very precise. It's very organized. It's well thought out. And there's a lot of layers to it. So hoarding, I just never really liked that. But anyway, preppers and food hoarders, the way it's known, emerged during the Cold War as fears of nuclear holocaust drove some people to go to great lengths to prepare for survival in a burned out world. Prepping involves iodide pills, water filtration, knowledge, repurposing abilities. But as the movement persisted over the decades, it has been mostly ignored by mainstream society, myself included, meaning the author of this, which came to view preppers mainly as paranoid radicals. So it's more than a little uncomfortable to confront the reality that this fringe industry is increasingly mainstream. I mean, if you live along the Gulf Coast, you have to be a prepper. I mean, we're just subjected to a lot of hurricanes, floods, and tornadoes. So it's just a part of life. But I guess for the rest of America, maybe the world, it looked a little nuts. Now it goes on. It says, in fact, in an era of growing environmental volatility and geopolitical unrest, Augason and his competitors appeared downright prescient, having knowledge ahead of time, smart, not so radically crazy after all, maybe even pragmatic. Hello, Lane and Janet and Donnie. God bless everyone. And 12th Bravo. Awesome. Okay, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Disaster after disaster has reminded us all of the disturbing premise underpinning prepper thinking. We're increasingly at risk of being cut off from our normal food supply. One recent report predicts that the survival food industry, which now produces very roughly 500 million in annual sales, will grow by 2.8 million by 2026. But yes, disaster after disaster. I mean, all of a sudden, I said I had a bad feeling about trains, but now it's a regular thing of trains derailing and chemicals spilling, and it's going into the water. It just keeps going into the water. That's one kind of disaster. Let's not forget hurricane season is coming up, and we had like this big blob of seaweed hitting the beaches lately. Just all kinds of disasters happening. Okay, so we see that the market is growing very fast when it comes to survival food, but I don't think that it's going to be able to sustain itself forever because of the way the global food problem is happening with the magnetic pole reversal problems. That it's going to be harder to grow crops if they're going to need shade. They're going to need a protected system, and it's going to have to be something that people are commonly getting into. So, but how long like a mass production survival food business will last, I mean, that's still dependent on being able to get the food, package the food with materials, have workers, be able to pay their workers with a dollar bill that's worth something, and then be able to transport it. And all of those in between phases are breaking down. So really, the time to get ready-made prepper food for you is going to end eventually too. So if you are still at that point after all these years where you're like, well, I can't prep, we'll get some seeds and learn how to filter some water, because eventually that might be your only option to survive, if you're planning to anyway. Now, there was an article that came out that said, does the emergency food storage industry cross the line with fear advertising? And I think that's a fair question. But considering everything we just mentioned, I don't think it's the right one. Because they're literally saying what all of us are already thinking anyway. And if it was just the food industry, like the survival food industry, saying that, okay, maybe we might be able to say, you're being a little extreme. But because that's based off of all the news that we're seeing, the actual prices we're seeing, the ability for people to feed themselves, or, kids to eat at school, that really isn't crossing the line. It's literally common sense. But the article was there from March 13th, just a couple of weeks ago. Oh, do you think the emergency food companies are crossing the line? It says the ads are interesting as expected and a little bizarre. They ask if we've ever noticed that some people never seem stressed out about life. Ooh, the ant and the grasshopper. This, of course, leads to the fact that all of these people have emergency food supplies that can feed them for decades. Little did we know that the secret of happiness is knowing that you have dehydrated white rice for a post-apocalyptic world. See, these are the people that have been calling preppers radicals, and extremists, and stuff, and they're still being saucy. But see, we know as a church that it's these same people that are going to be in trouble. They're the same ones who are going to start acting crazy because they don't have anything. It's the same because they have attitudes to begin with. But it says, to be clear, the goal of this type of food is survival calories. These companies do their best to make their offerings palatable, but this is what you get. So it was a big, big article. I'm trying to get to the part where it says, that it's crossing the line. But it's, I guess I just can't find it now in the article, but it's still there in the title, which is fine. They're trying to say, does the emergency food storage industry cross the line with fear? What do you guys think? Hello, Pyrotechnic. Good to see you. Brian Smith. About to eat some oatmeal toast and sausage. That's a good one. Been prepping for years. It never ends. Yeah, that's true. Daryl, hello. Good morning from Indiana. Good morning, Shalom. Scuba lover. Uh, yes, it is very rare I'm on in the morning. Daughter of the Most High God. Good morning. Hippie girl, welcome. Wendy from Hardneck. Awesome. Everybody's come in. That's great. Well, to answer that last question that we were talking about, are they crossing the line? Well, the Food Economic Forum had a warning of its own. And if them putting out a warning doesn't just tell the whole world that, people like Augustin Farms and ReadyWise and Mountain House aren't crossing the line at all, actually. They're following the warning signs. Is this article called, well, it's not an article. It's just something you can Google. It says World Economic warns food shortages, but it says it predicts, and this was January 12th, it predicted persistent polycrisis of food, energy, and fertilizer shortages during the next 2 years. Better get to composting that waste. A new report says starkly how food system failures are unavoidable, and society can expect further food price spikes expected as the cost of living crisis continues. And then you see news like this out this morning. Car market collapse imminent. Housing market collapse happening. U.S. military has serious issues with readiness, and also to readiness to defend America. I saw where they depleted the munitions in America and sent it to Ukraine. And at the same time this morning, I saw how during training exercises that multiple helicopters crashed during training exercise. This is our military. This is how far off base they are ready. And people, we always had this view of America and our troops, that they're ready. And I'm supposed they would be, but they aren't being led properly. They just aren't. And so they are not ready. They don't have the munitions. This is what they're facing. And people are saying that cash is going worthless. How much longer can you buy anything, right? Oh, yeah. But it's not just America. We're talking Cuba is on the brink of collapse. UK economy is in crisis. UK food crisis. Sri Lanka food crisis. You see it in Africa. You see food and energy problems in China. This is a global problem. And that's what I'd said before my videos, before the famine came, when I was warning, and I looked crazy too. Everything looked good when I said it. And I was like, watch. I said it's going to start in certain areas and it's going to grow. So we are already looking at not just the depletion of our food supply, but we're going to be looking at for a while food rationing. And I remember the government butter. I told y'all one of my side of my family was very, very poor. And my grandma, she had that government butter. And we'd have it on toast with her homemade fig jelly that she grew in her yard, the figs. But everything had in her house had labels that were white with just like the word on it, like flour, chicken or something, And if she didn't have it, she probably wouldn't have survived. But you had to learn to make things stretch. You had to make everything count. And that right there, at least people could survive. But there's a really good chance that, we have a lot more people nowadays that have way less skills. And they have a whole lot of attitude that's not going to get anybody anywhere. So time is running out. Hurricane season's on the way. We never know what's going to happen from day to day. Yellowstone Lake was having some kind of swarm just yesterday. We don't know what's going to happen from day to day. So it's going to have to be a question that you ask yourself. Were the preppers crazy or not? Because you know what? I have a feeling that it's going to be those same people knocking on your door. Hey, what you got? What you got? I'm telling you. People, it's like their friendships are temporary and based on what you may have at the time that they can usurp. And once they're done with you, once they brung you out like a dirty dish rag, they're done with you. They didn't care enough to put themselves in a good position because there's too many people that depend on the government or depend on other people. They haven't become independent yet, and that can be a very fatal flaw. All right. I have an appointment since money's becoming worthless. Car industry is falling apart. Y'all sent me help. I'm getting another repair done this morning. It's the catalytic converter. It's getting put on today in like an hour or something. So I love y'all. And this was a pop-in day. And I'll probably be back on Sunday night. I love you guys. God bless you. Thank you for being here, Michelle, and everybody, making sure I didn't miss anybody. I love you guys. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.